Hey everybody, welcome back to the End is Near Gear podcast. Today's episode is about security, whether it be post-event in SHTF or even just everyday home security. These are things that we can do to improve the security of our homes. So before we get started, as usual, quick reminder that nothing in this podcast should be considered as medical, legal, or financial advice, and any views or opinions of our guests, etc., do not necessarily represent or reflect that of myself or the End is Near Gear podcast. That being said, when we sit back and take a look at home security, one thing we really need to analyze is where are the vulnerable points. If you live in a 2-story home, your most vulnerable entry points are going to be on your ground floor doors, and your ground floor windows. There's a few things that we can do for our doors to create a little bit more security. First of all, we can have cameras of some kind installed so we can see who is on the other side of the door before we open it or approach it, or if we hear something, we're able to see what's going on before that person gets inside or gets to us. Preferably, you should be picking cameras that do not require the internet to operate. Now, in today's world of tech and cameras, it's getting harder and harder to find cameras that allow you to view them locally without internet access. Now, obviously, if we talk about like a post-event, like EMP situation, your cameras are probably not going to be working. So that's just something to consider, but it is one thing that you can do now for everyday security. Another thing you can do immediately to your front door is to add 3-inch screws to your door jambs and your strike plates and everything like that. 3-inch screws are going to give you a lot more security when someone tries to kick in your door. They sell stuff that is specifically called door jamb armor, which is just reinforced plates that go on your door jambs with 3-inch screws, and that will actually make it even harder to kick your door in. I would recommend having a deadbolt. Deadbolts typically come in 3 different grades. Grade 1 is going to be the most secure deadbolt that you can get, and grade 3 is going to be the weakest. If you buy a deadbolt that isn't graded, it's probably not a very secure deadbolt. The grade 1 deadbolts will typically have a longer throw, at least 1 inch, which makes them more secure. This is the amount that the actual piece that goes from the door side into the door jamb, how long that piece is. And with a 1-inch throw or larger, it tends to be more difficult to use a spreading tool to gain entry. Some other features that you might find on a grade 1 deadbolt would be key control, double cylinders, beveled casings, anti-drill, and bump proof. Just be aware though that these deadbolts tend to have a higher price tag. I will leave some links below that will explain a little bit more about how deadbolts work and what to look for when you're trying to find a grade 1 commercial deadbolt. You can also put braces on the back of the door to put a board across. If it's a post event or something and you're, locking down for the night or something, you would put a board across in the thing, and you can get kits to do that, and that's fairly inexpensive. Of course, prices of lumber are going up, so, it is what it is, but just a thought. Now, when you're talking about the other ground floor insecurities, your windows. First of all, don't leave things laying around outside that can be used to break your windows or pry them open. And the same with your door. You don't want to leave a crowbar sitting right outside next to your front door. Be smart. Don't leave things outside that people can use to gain entry inside. That's like basic. Doesn't cost anything. Be smart. So aside from that, when you're talking about windows, first floor, they sell something called security film. Most of it is made by the company 3M, and it comes in various different thicknesses. It's not super complicated to apply, and it's used a lot on commercial storefronts. But I'm telling you, for a home application, this is good for every day. It doesn't affect your ability to see through the glass or anything like that. What's great about it is that when someone hits it, first of all, it sounds very loud when you hit it. So if it's like on your garage or something windows, or your downstairs windows and you're upstairs, it's going to sound even louder than someone busting a regular window. And they're going to have to beat on it for probably 2 minutes or more to get through it, unlike a traditional window where you hit it once and it just shatters and they climb through. There's plenty of videos that I'm going to link to of demonstrations of the different varieties of films offered by 3M. They do have some really good demonstration videos to show you just how tough this film really is. For example, one of their higher rated films, it's going to be pretty pricey probably, but it's well worth it if you live in an area where you have concerns about this type of stuff. But they actually put up a demo pane of glass with the film on it, and they shoot 26 rounds of 223 into it, and it's still intact, the glass. I mean, it's not bulletproof or anything. The rounds do go through, but the window stays intact, and then they have to go up and beat on it with a sledgehammer and an axe until they can finally get enough cleared to get through. So it just shows you how tough it really is. So it just so happens they also happen to make a version of this that's specifically meant for vehicle windows that goes on your side windows. And I think this would be really great if you live in an area where there's been a lot of protests and rioting going on, because we've seen how they smash car windows and stuff, and God forbid they smash your window and try to drag you out. This is going to buy you a little more time to maybe get on the phone with 911, give plenty of warnings, blow your horn, and slowly start to move to get away from the danger. This is going to buy you more time. So I'll go ahead and leave you a link to the video demonstration of that as well. So one possible downside that I could see to this on your car windows would be the ability to egress during a water emergency. If your car is becoming submerged, I'm not sure if you could smash this film from the inside to get out. Just something to think about. So anyway, another thing, second floor windows. While I don't think it's necessary to put security film on a second floor window, by all means go ahead if you feel so inclined. The thing that I don't like is when people leave things outside near their house that can be used to climb into their second story windows. If you have a second story window, unless the guy that's breaking in is Batman or someone like that, they can't just fly up and come into your window. So don't leave trees that are really close to your, if you have an awning or something that someone could climb up the tree and get onto that. Don't leave ladders sitting outside of your garage. Don't leave things that can be used as climbing devices outside your house. It goes back to being smart, like I said at the beginning. Don't leave tools out that can be used to break into your house. So moving on, from the inside of your house, you can start looking at the idea of the layout of your apartment, your house, your home. You have the home turf advantage here. More than likely, an intruder isn't going to know the layout of your home as well as you do. There's lots of strategies for funneling an intruder into a certain area where you have the advantage over them. So keep that in mind. You can do a little research into that. I won't go too far into it because it's a little more strategy than what I would like to talk about. Another thing you can do outside your ground floor windows is to plant rose bushes or hawthorns or something else with really sharp thorns that are going to get caught in people's clothing and tear them up a bit. It's just going to slow them down and give you more time to react. That's the whole idea behind the security film on the first floor windows, is that 2 minutes extra that it takes them to bust through your window is 2 minutes you have to get your shit together to react. So, instead of instantaneous, they kick the door in and they're in, or they bust the window and they're in, you're giving yourself more time because now it takes them 2 minutes to bust the window or 2 minutes to kick in the door instead of like 2 seconds. So keep that in mind. There are some things that apply specifically to a post-SHTF situation that you can do. And that would be things like having pre-cut plywood for your bottom floor windows. Even if you have security film, I would recommend having plywood pieces cut and ready to go that are measured appropriately for your windows. Store them in your garage or whatever, and if the shit hits the fan, you put them up. And that's the way it is. It's going to help you with the next thing I'm going to mention. Light control. At night, if you are a prepper or if you have anything that gives you a source of light, you are painting a target on your back if no one else has power. So if this is a post-event, say an EMP, a CME, grid down because the grid is crippled from a cyber attack. But if for some reason you have power and no one else around you does, maybe you had the foresight to harden your stuff against an EMP, or maybe you're just not connected to the internet and it happens to be a cyber attack that cripples everything and your solar system is independent. You do not want to be a beacon to the rest of the people around you saying, hey, I still have power. Come here and see what else I have. That's the main thing, is you don't want them to see that. So you have to police your lights. You can do this with blackout curtains. You can get weed barrier fabric. If you put it thick enough, it really kills the light from outside. You can use garbage bags, the contractor thick ones. You can use blankets. You can use anything you want. Just make sure that once you put them up, you go outside after dark and you check and make sure there is no light coming through. Plywood will block the light. If need be, you can always run duct tape around the outside edge of the plywood as well to help block any light that might seep through from the edges. I would highly recommend including a small peephole somewhere in the plywood so you can still see out. And you can cover this up with anything. You can make a little swinging flap or something, or use a piece of tape, whatever you need to do to make a small peephole so that you still are able to look out if need be. Now, the next thing is a little more difficult to achieve, and that would be food odor control. When people are hungry, they will smell your food very easily and they will seek it out. So try to police your food odors as best as you can. If you see people earlier in the day hanging around in close proximity to your homestead or something, you may want to forego eating for a little longer than you normally would so that they have sufficient time to move out of the area. You may need to pay attention a little more and stuff like that. If you're going to cook, maybe cook something that doesn't emit a strong food odor. Don't add a lot of spices to the food while it's cooking. You can add seasoning afterwards, but don't cook with it. It's very difficult to hide food odors, but you have to be conscious of that because it will draw people right to you. They can follow the scent and they will find you. So you need to really, really be cognizant of how you deal with food odors. So that's about it for this episode of the End is Near Gear podcast. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you'll come back and join us next time. Thank you for listening.